She a bad joint named Maya. And when I seen her, man, she looked fire. She got me feeling higher than the sour. So I'm trying to feel how I feel inside her. I asked her what she doing, she like nada. So she just chill, I'm about to get up in the shower. I said, alright, cool, I'ma be there in an hour. I just wanna live like a Kuna and Matata. I ain't got
Terry,
no time
coming to
for
my
no
appreciate
baby
that. Good
mama
morning.
drama. All about my comments, my letters, no tomatoes. Always bragging what they got up in they wallet. Ain't no really telling if we let us see tomorrow. Get it on my own and I ain't really trying to bar. So I stay fly, gotta dress up in
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Tell me what it is, what you want from me. Brother Chuck Diesel. Right Church, wrong pew, Roller Dragon. Good morning, y'all. Willow Nighthawk, good morning.
It just made the pressure raise. Going through a phase, gotta get myself out it. Don't talk about it, boy, they tell you gotta be about it. So I be trying to face the world head on. Front seat riding, cruising down the meadows. Pedal to the meadow. Cool breeze blowing down the windows. Palm trees, blowing trees.
Infinite Content Mars, good morning, y'all. Sun Queen, good morning. Magdalene Moon, good morning, man. Missed you. DB404, good morning. Six Dragon Daddy, good morning, brother. Laura, good morning, good morning. Sophia, good morning, Sophia. Hope everybody had a great weekend this morning. Good morning, everybody that's streaming to Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you're streaming from, YouTube. Good morning, y'all. Good morning, everyone. Y'all make sure that you stay tuned. We got more coming up on the Benjamin Dixon Show. Y'all like it or not, it started next. Y'all make sure you stay tuned.
It still can't hurt me. No, it just can't hurt me. No. No, you just can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No. I know it's hard to be polite, and it's easy being petty. My mama used to tell me, gotta use you when you ready. Man, it's crazy how my brother said it could have been my celly. It's either prison or a grave, that's what everybody tell me. Man, life ain't a beach, it's a female dog. I'm staying 10 toes down, though I still might fall. Oh yeah, now I done came through, knocking pieces off your wall. Loving people who persecute you, still don't be at all.
Susan, good morning. Truth, good morning.
But my flesh feel kind of weak. When that victory be looking like the verge of defeat, and I feel like disrespect, tell me turn my other cheek and say sticks and stones may break my bone, but your words can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No.
Brenda Johnson, good morning, y'all. Good morning. Terry Covington, good morning.
And it still can't hurt me. No, it just can't hurt me. No. No, you just can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, no, no.
Luke Kane, good morning, no, brother Luke Kane.
No, you just can't hurt me. No. See, it's hard to be polite. It's easy being petty. Mama used to tell me, gotta use you when you're ready. Cause I ain't working on my own timing. Ain't got no diamonds on me, but I stay shining. Yeah. They say the world would be a better place if they got the hate. On the back, let's keep it real. It'll be better. So be a lighter.
She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Yeah. We get to it, gotta stock up.
Laura Estrada, thank you for your super chat. She says, I'm proud to be a Bubba special harem. I hate y'all so much.
Don't get for the phones, got her own. Don't get for the scenes, take her own trip. Guarantee it's for a bag and she walking.
Brother Mark S., good morning, y'all.
She look like a bag when she walk.
Miss Patricia, good morning. Shout out to everybody that was able to make it to the Patreon party on Friday night, man. It was an excellent thing. It was a whole vibe. I appreciate y'all. Love y'all so much.
I just up the price for the features. I can see the fakes and the leeches.
I can't stand y'all. Laser Sword, good morning.
Got it in my passenger. I told her grab the wheel.
Man, I forgot about the music playing.
But she rocks with me cause she real, for real. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it.
I'm a little bit nice. I'm a little bit too concerned.
But every part of my body is telling me to run away from you. Come a little bit closer. Yeah, yeah. Come a little bit closer. Yeah. You're a little bit crazy. It's been days but you never change. What's love got to do with it? He comes around, better knock that step down. Come a little bit closer. Yeah,
And a heart.
come a little bit closer.
Bruh, y'all make my morning. I love y'all so much. Y'all are freaking crazy, dude.
Put your finger right in his face and tell that man bye-bye. I'm too fly. I'm too fly. Bye-bye. 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 You're a little bit selfish. You get mad every time you lose. You can't take me with you. I'm scared you're gonna blow your fuse. Come a little bit closer. Yeah, I can really start over.
Esther, good morning, y'all.
Yeah.
Keisha Baird, good morning from Johannesburg, South Africa. Keisha, good morning, y'all. Family, make sure that Keisha feels welcome, y'all. Drop y'all lines in the chat for Keisha, man. Keisha Baird, tuning in from Johannesburg, South Africa, y'all. Y'all make sure y'all drop those lines in the chat, y'all. Tiger, good morning, Tiger. Tyler, good morning.
To fly, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye. Here's to the memories. She's to who used to be. Your friend said that you left me. I'm glad that's what you believe. All my ladies who got a brother that doesn't treat them
Welcome to the screen.
Put your finger right in his face and tell that man
The panel. B in Georgia and Professor Hart, y'all welcome. I said there, Professor Hart.
You did it too,
Professor Mac.
So Professor Mac, since we're here, good morning and welcome to this special 4th of July episode. It's the 5th of July, but we know everyone is off today, but we're broadcasting. We're going to be joined momentarily by Rebecca Azor. But Brother Mac, I don't know if you've noticed several times on the show so far, I think everyone except for Georgia has called you Dr. Hart.
And Thank you, Georgia.
And blame Ben for that, okay? Brother Matt, no. Blame Ben because Ben started it, then I started doing it. That's what happens.
So we I don't know if you know our brother Dr. Carl Hart. He's a professor of neuroscience at Columbia University, and he's been a guest on the show. And he discusses the impacts of drug use and responsible drug use for adults. A great book, great guest. But his name is Carl Hart, and so when we say Carl, we think doctor. When we say Dr. Mac, it's all a mess. Good morning and welcome.
That is good.
We want to. I want to turn around the conversation and continue where we left off, and kind of dovetail all these things together because, we were talking off air, Georgia. We just got done talking about during the On the Clock segment about the collapse in Miami. And Dr. Mack and I were behind the scenes talking about it. And Dr. Mack, you were giving some insight from the engineering perspective and the warnings that the structural engineer gave. And I don't want to spend this episode talking about this, we have to talk about the greed that is at the core of those lives being lost in Miami. Because I'm going to be honest with you, it's a dual system that we're having to survive. It's not just the system of white supremacy. It's a system of greed and capitalism underneath it that allows people to ignore the warnings of a structural engineer and ignore the fact that they knew they needed $15 million in repairs done, all for the sake of their profit. Dr. Mack, you were speaking about that.
I'm a mechanical engineer by education. And so when I was in Seattle, I used to work on the design, build, and startup of wastewater treatment facilities. And so when you put these new systems into place, before you start those systems, I was in charge of the startup of those systems, which means that each of these systems have safety devices on them. So if you're talking about a pumping system, there's a high pressure switch that says if the pressure in this pipeline reaches a certain point, first of all, it'll give an alarm. And then if it continues to grow, it could get to a point that pressure switch, there's a cutoff switch that literally shuts that pump off and alerts the operators that you have a problem with that system. So every system within the facility needed to go through this startup, and I was responsible for that. So you had contractors who would come in, and prior to me going into that particular arena and that being my expertise, you had contractors who would build these facilities. And at one time, they were responsible to ensure the safety of that system before they implemented that system. And these guys would just do literally nothing from the standpoint of economics. So when you talk about receiving a warning from a structural engineer about a building, about a bridge, and you ignore that, trust and believe it's not only capitalism, but it's criminal at its heart. There's just no other way to put that. So indeed, it's a tragedy. And when they start going through it, believe me, that level of accountability is going to reach high, it's going to reach hard, and it should. It absolutely should. And what America needs to understand is that infrastructure bill that is before Congress now, if you go to the Association of Civil Engineers, the Society of Civil Engineers, they have put out a report card on America's infrastructure. And I'm talking about a report card that's been out for probably 15 plus years. And America is getting an F. We're talking, so when you're talking about some of the bridges that collapsed, America's overall infrastructure is absolutely in shambles. So that's why when we saw, some years ago when there was a power outage on the East Coast, that power outage occurred because somebody hit a telephone pole in Ohio and it literally wiped out that system. So when we think about the protection of our country, that hacking that you saw with Colonial Pipeline,
Yeah.
Trust and believe. If our enemies wanted to paralyze and cripple America, all they have to do is go towards the electrical grid and the infrastructure of this country, because we are literally on a shoestring. Last time I was in Mississippi, I'm riding around Jackson, the capital of Mississippi. I'm watching water just bubble up through the streets because of deteriorating pipes that are in our system. So our infrastructure is horrible. And what we saw in Florida, if that's not a wake-up call to all of America, especially those in Congress, to stop this nonsense and get that infrastructure bill in place, because even if we started today, we are behind the 8 ball in a most dramatic way.
Wow. Georgia, I'm listening to Brother Mac, and I'm looking at what happened in South Florida, and what does that say about this? What does that say about this country? Like, I know that it's not only germane to the United States of America, but I can't worry about anybody else. In this country, we are so negligent. Our leadership is so negligent that we can be put in this scenario. But if you look at every other category of issues, this is par for the course. Like, we're negligent when it comes to climate change. We're negligent when it comes to any other significant issue. We have a way, our leaders have a way of ignoring what is urgent and needs to be done right now. And they always wait until it's too much, until it's a disaster.
Well, I think from a legislation standpoint, we have to raise the bar. There's absolutely no way an engineer should be able to walk into a condo that size with that many lives on the line, that many families who are living in this building, and see that type of damage and just say, oh, it's fine. You can repair it in whenever you can. You know, like, we have to raise the bar from a legislation standpoint that prohibits these landowners, these building owners from getting away with what they've been getting away with, and at the expense of our lives, right? It also makes me think about the way that this nation was founded on this notion that indigenous people were not civilized, and that the white man was going to come here to America and civilize them with these big buildings and these bridges over water, and you have oil pipelines under the water, and all of this fancy technology that was just going to make our life more efficient and better and civilized. But in fact, when you look at just this one building collapsing, it feels very uncivilized to know that you had an engineer who went in, who saw the damage, but shrugged his shoulders and said it like that's normal. And there was nothing to be alarmed of. How is that normal? Why is that normal? Why, if there has been a crack in the foundation of a building, why do we turn the other cheek and say it's no big deal when we know potentially what it could do? You know, a building has to sit on a solid foundation. You know, I mean, this is the basics of engineering. I didn't go to school to be an engineer, and I know that, right? And so to me, I feel like we in America have this tendency to build, but we don't have that same tenacity in terms of maintaining. And so you could even put it in simple terms of, to whom much is given, much is required. If you are going to invest millions of dollars in building any kind of structure, you better be prepared to have millions of dollars in the bank to maintain it over the lifetime of its existence.
Right. And Georgia, you got to understand that when they design these buildings, first of all, an engineer is not an engineer is not an engineer. You know, in order to build something of that structure, to not even to build it, but to design it, there are degrees of engineering, and I particularly don't have this degree, and it's called a professional engineer's license, which means that you have gone through enough of your engineering experience, you have shown a proficiency in engineering that they grant you a stamp, and you have to take this exam to get this PE license, which means that when you put your stamp on any design, you know that this design will work. But when they do these designs, there's a life expectancy of all of the materials that are used in that. So the mere fact that somebody, and when they do these designs, the technology piece of it, and I just want to give a little pushback. The technology that we have used to make our lives better, more efficient, more comfortable is there. But in every engineering design, at the core of it, there is a safety factor that is built into every design. That safety factor was there in that building. The engineers who shook their shoulders, who ignored it, trust and believe that accountability is going to come. It's not that difficult. It may be difficult to understand, and they'll find out exactly why that building collapsed. They will find that out. But best and believe the inspections and who ignored it, that is as clear as we are on this show right now.
I am I'm taken aback, and I want us to pull up the image. There's a video that I want us to look at. It's in the Slack, and it just shows how far we will ignore the obvious problems. And this is a video, James. I don't know if you saw this weekend, of the ocean on fire. I mean, in the Gulf of Mexico, the ocean was on fire, and it's because of a ruptured pipeline. You can see the platform there. You can see how huge this fire is. We cannot afford to be negligent in this country with regards to our infrastructure or our environment, because when it does collapse and when the environment does scream out at us, it will be destructive. Did anybody see this weekend? Because this footage right here is it's over 70 million views on Twitter in one day, and understandably so. James.
Yeah, and we saw it. Somebody posted it in the patron party, like right before the actual party. Somebody sent it to us, so we were able to see it. And subsequently, they did put it out that next day. I think within a few hours, they were able to put it out. But then, how about there was another explosion near an oil rig or on an oil rig? It still hadn't been determined yet. That happened 24 hours later at a different one across the country. Yeah.
And so, Ben, this isn't, sometimes issues like this occur. And I'll take the Dreamliner from Boeing, right? In their quest, and I'm not saying that this is the case for Boeing, but to the point that you and Georgia were speaking of the economics. In their quest to get that plane out, they'll shortcut certain safety checks, and trust and believe when those devices that are under design, when the forces that are applied to something like a plane or a building or a pipeline, when those forces hit and you shortcutted the safety checks on them, they'll manifest themselves, like we're seeing in this ocean fire, like we do with the Boeing Dreamliner. And so now with that airplane, now everybody is saying that the FAA was in bed with Boeing and oh, yeah, that's fine. And they overlook these things. And now we're seeing that a plane that should have been making them billions of dollars is now grounded. Right?
It is interesting that they would be greedy to the point of self-destruction. I mean, if they actually took the proper safety measures along the way, but it's as if they can't see themselves. And I think as Black people in this country, we know full well that they are at a lot of stages in America's history, they have been incapable of seeing their own hypocrisy or how their own greed is destructive to their own ends. And Black people in this country have been on the receiving end of it. And that goes back to the conversation of the 4th of July and what is it to African Americans, or as posed by Frederick Douglass, what is it to the American slave? And that has become, in a way, Dr. Mack, a rallying cry around the Black community, almost in terms of a way of rejecting the 4th of July. And understandably so, when you consider the path of Black people in this country, I get it. But then there's a flip side of it that, the bones of my ancestors go back at least 5 generations. And if it were not for slavery, I think we would see that slavery destroying all the records. My family's probably been in here longer than most white Americans. So what do we do with that dichotomy, Dr. Mack? I want to come to you and discuss this in context of the 4th of July, the dichotomy of the rejection of America because of what America did to us versus laying claim on America because what our ancestors did for America.
Well, you're right. A lot of people have gone to that speech, and we've used that today as a justification for why we don't celebrate the 4th of July or why it hasn't, it's meaningless to us. And in many ways, I absolutely understand it. But I'm always reminded of the quote, "It is a truism of history that people react on what they think has happened rather than what actually happened." And in this case with Brother Douglass, I think that people took his speech, to take his speech in 1852 and to apply it to today without understanding the scholarship behind our experience. I think it's wrong. I think it's reckless. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just give us a little history lesson on, and let me say this. I have no doubt that I am in the overwhelming minority when I tell you that I celebrate the 4th of July from a patriotic standpoint, right? And so I'm going to welcome all of your questions and comments regarding it. So let's go into just the title of the speech alone will tell you. The title of the speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July?" And remember when Brother Douglass gave the speech, it was literally on this day in 1852 that he gave this speech in Rochester, New York, in Corinthian Hall to the ladies of the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society. So that's who invited him to talk about commemorating the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which at that point was 76 years old. And so now you go in, and if you Google that, and I got a mad amount of respect for Howard Zinn. But Howard Zinn, in the Howard Zinn Project, he labels the speech this, and I want to be sure I got this right. He says, "Frederick Douglass, the meaning of July 4th for the Negro." That's not what the title of the speech was. So Frederick Douglass talked about the 4th of July from the viewpoint of the slave in 1852. That's what he talked about. And so when you get inside the contents of his speech, he talked about the evils of the slave trade, both the transatlantic slave trade and the internal slave trade. Because if you go back to the Constitution, Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, they said for the next 20 years from the adoption of the Constitution in 1788 to 1808, for those 20 years, those 13 colonies can import as many slaves as they want to. But after 1808, it's illegal. So he talked about the transatlantic slave trade, but then he really focused on the internal slave trade amongst states. He talks about the evils of slavery. He talks about the lack of citizenship of us as a people. He talks about the denial of liberty, and he goes in and defines liberty, because you could define liberty in many ways, but Frederick says liberty is the ownership of one's own body. And then he talks about the lack of political participation that we as a people had in 1852. That's what he says. So in that speech, I think that the part of the speech that resonates with so many Black folks today is this. And he says, "What to the American slave is your 4th of July?" I answer, it's a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, your unholy license, your national greatness, swelling vanity, the sounds of your rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shout of liberty and equality, holy mockery, your prayers, your hymns, your sermons and thanksgiving with all your religious parades and solemnity are to him mere bombast, their fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. this is not a nation on, there is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Now, I think that sums up what you and many of us felt, right? But when you get into the scholarship of Brother Douglas, I'd have to ask this question. And I've heard us say this a lot of times. If I were to ask, and I have asked, did we contribute to the development of America? And it is an overwhelming yes that we did. Not yes, but it is an overwhelming yes that we contributed
Black folks.
The contributions, Black folks, to the development of America. But then my question is, do we claim those contributions? And the best example I can give us in modern day, I can give you a ton of them, but I'll give you this one. When America put the first American in space in 1962, John Glenn, on its face, that's an incredible accomplishment. Cool in the game. But when we found out that there were some hidden figures in the case of Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Bond, and Mary Jackson, when we as Black folk found out that we didn't put him in space, but we most certainly helped put him in space, then that accomplishment took on a whole new meaning. As a matter of fact, even as I'm explaining it to you now, I get chills to think that in one of the most incredible feats of ingenuity, that Black folks were a part of that made that contribution sweeter, absolutely sweeter. So now I ask you, if we're going to claim the development and contributions to this country, did we help give birth to America?
Absolutely.
Now, when I ask that question, people can say, well, Carl, what do you mean did we give birth to America? Well, it's germane to this speech, the 4th of July. See, it was the 4th of July, July 4th, 1776, that America declared its independence. And so in declaring its independence, we decided we're going to fight against the tyranny of Britain. So in that war that established America, did we, as Black folks, did we have anything to do with the birth of America? And so I would say this from a history standpoint. I'd like Dwayne, and if you could, to pull up this excerpt from a Hessian officer. So when that war was being fought, the British brought in the Germans, German mercenaries, and they called those soldiers Hessians. So as soldiers do, this particular Hessian was keeping a diary about what he saw, what his experiences were during the war. And here's one of the things he said. And if that's up on the screen, I want you to pay attention to what's in italics. And if you can't see it, I'll read it to you. He says, "The Negro can take the field instead of his master, and therefore no regiment is to be seen in which there are not Negroes in abundance, and among them are able-bodied, strong, and brave fellows." Now, I want to digest that. I want to explain that to you. When he said the Negro can take the field instead of his master, what he was saying is that white colonists elected not to physically go out there and fight, and instead said to the Continental Army and Congress, when they asked for volunteers, well, I won't go, but you can take my slave and let him go fight. That's and in exchange for their enslaved fighting, they would get money and in some cases more land. But this Hessian officer said, in every regiment we come across, there is an abundance of Negroes. Now I want to take you back to what Frederick Douglass says in that same speech, because part of what he did in that speech was he explained the American Revolution, everything that led up to it, and now the ultimate victory. And so as he's explaining this history, he says to the audience, "Friends and citizens, I need not further into the causes which led to this anniversary." And skipping down, he says, "The causes which led to the separation of the colonists from the British crown have never lacked a tongue. They have been taught in your common schools, narrated at your firesides, unfolded from your pulpits, thundered from your legislative halls, and are as familiar to you as household words. They form the staple of your national poetry and eloquence." So I got to thinking, when all of us sat in class What did we learn about the American Revolution? George Washington, Patrick Henry, Paul Revere, the British are coming, We learn history, his story. So now, why today do Karl Marx, who I would consider myself a socially conscious man, why would I celebrate the 4th of July from a patriotic standpoint? Well, I'll tell you why. What does the red in the flag represent? It represents the blood. So now if we're talking about the blood, let's look at our story. Just like we looked at those hidden figures when we looked at that monumental accomplishment of sending the first American, John Glenn, into space. Let's look at what happened when America was born. You just heard from this Hessian officer that there were regiments and we were abundant in there. So let's go back to the first drop of blood ever shed for this country.
That's it, right there.
March 5th, 1770. Now, if you look at that picture, and that picture was taken from a history book copyrighted in 1951, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So if you're looking at that picture of Crispus Attucks, you clearly see a Black man. The first drop of blood shed in defense of this country was Crispus Attucks. But I looked at a textbook now in 2000, copyrighted in 2000, the same exact picture, except Crispus Attucks is nowhere in that picture. They have washed him completely out of it. But then I would ask the question to myself, well, Carl, what if Crispus Attucks was the only one? See, you look at that picture, it's the same picture, but there's no Crispus Attucks no more. There's not even a mention of him. His name is not even in the index of the books. And when your name is not in the index, forget looking in the table of contents, you ain't in the book.
Right.
So I asked myself, what if his drop of blood was the only drop of blood that helped establish America? Would it be enough? And the answer to me was absolutely it would be enough. But now I want to talk to you about our story.
Dr. Mack, let me jump in there. Real quick because I want to get part 2 of that. Let's take a quick break because we're going to bring Rebecca Azor into the conversation and get to the part 2 of that. But before we go to break, what I'm hearing from your perspective, because it is a thing where we it's almost like a badge of nobility to be able to say, oh, yeah, I don't really celebrate the 4th of July.
Absolutely.
And what you're saying is, and I want to discuss this a little bit more because, like, why should we allow them to cause us to reject our accomplishments? America is a Black accomplishment. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Rebecca Zora going to join the conversation. James, DJ Exclusive, it's in your hand. We'll be right back after this.
Good morning again, everybody. Going to get these quick patrons off real quick. Can't stand that girl. All right, y'all. Here we go. New patrons. We have. As soon as my computer loads up, because when I tell y'all this thing takes up all the system resources ever. Suku S, William M, Mark from Australia who increased their pledge. Shout out to y'all. We have Tajan H, Larkspur S, S Nisa, Jason L. Mark from Australia also increased their pledge on the other Patreon as well too. Shout out Mark from Australia. That's my dog right there, man. Tracy J increased their pledge, and new Twitch subscribers. We have Mimosa Dragon gifted 1 subscription to Present Me with Logic. Make sure if you have not already joined patreon.com/LikeItOrNot, patreon.com/LikeItOrNot, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Like It or Not. So y'all don't want to miss out, man. Get into some of this good music. Welcome back, Rebecca. Give it to me, funky, funky, give it to me. Give it to me, funky, funky, give me that funky, funky, give it to me, funky, funky, give me that. Make sure wherever you're streaming from, make sure that you hit that like button, y'all. Hit that like. Give it to me, baby. Face towards the stars. Feel my beating heart.
all up in my zone.
All right, there we go. This dang on microphone.
I let it go. That you want to go numb. Heartbeats like a drum. Feel your fantasy. It is up to me.
Feel it in my body, feel it in my feet. When it feels so good inside. When I hear that music, it gets me on my feet. Makes me wanna dance all night. Don't make me remember everything you did. 'Cause I don't wanna hurt inside. Feel it in my body, feel it in my feet. And it feels so good inside. And I always wanna feel like this. I close my eyes and all the troubles fade away. Your wish was so deep
Stand up right now, so I'm gonna get it.
But tonight I won't let that.
All right, y'all, make sure that y'all hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe wherever you're streaming from today. Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, man, YouTube. We appreciate y'all. Make sure that y'all hit that like button. Shout out to all my family over on Twitch, y'all. Love y'all, mean it.
Feel it in my body, feel it in my feet. And it feels so good inside. Don't need anybody, I just need the beat. I just wanna dance all night. I don't want to remember everything you did. Come down with the hurt inside. Feel it in my body.
Rap 1984, good morning, Brother Bryce. Good morning.
So good inside. And I always wanna feel
Levi, good morning to you. Shout out to everybody again, y'all.
Your wish was so deep into me. But tonight I won't let that. Gonna make myself forget about you, baby. Cause tonight I'm gonna dance the baby. Forget Gonna make myself forget about you, baby. Gonna make
You do to me, babe, I can guarantee. Honey, I got what you need. Under the night sky, I want your eyes all on me. Don't tell me lies now, I always get mine. Don't play with me. You want it? Can you feel me? No, can't handle it. Right.
All right, y'all, make sure that y'all hit that like button, y'all. Hit that like button, share, comment, subscribe, y'all. And if you have not already, patreon.com/likeitandnot. Patreon.com/likeitandnot. That's how we're able to bring y'all this dope ass content. So please make sure that you go join today. Love it, y'all.
Me all alone, holding back, no. We could take it to the stars where you wanna go.
All right, y'all, welcome back. The family is so many. I was gonna say the family this morning, y'all. Welcome back. There we go. Welcome back. We have a full house this morning. My goodness. Welcome back on the far right side of your screen. We have the missing link. Rebecca Azor is back for the first time in a week. So we got Georgia Ford, we got Benjamin Dixon, we got Rebecca Azor, we got DJ Exclusive, and we have Dr. Carl Mack. I got it right. I'm not going to mess it up. Rebecca. Hey.
Hey, what's up? How are you guys doing?
Hear you.
I know.
There she goes.
Oh, look.
We got
am I lagging? It's every time we get on Zoom. I don't know who brought us on Zoom, but every time we get on Zoom, you know, I be having the issues. Okay. But good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am so happy to be back. I'm happy to, you know, just be recovering from the week of festivities. But I've been watching you guys, and you guys have been definitely holding it down. Dr. Carl Mack, not Dr. Carl. Shouts out to Dr. Carl Hart, because y'all know I love him.
Right.
Dr. Carl Mack, thank you so much for holding it down, educating us. Georgia, you know you always hold it down, and it was great to hear your perspective on many things. It was nice. It was nice to see everybody just chilling. You know, I'm like, dang, I really want to be there. But, you know.
We wanted to be where you were. You were on the beach. We posted on Instagram and the drinks and the beach and the parties and stuff. We all wanted to be like you.
The strangers. But it was good though, because I was like, it's been, you know what's so crazy? For this particular week, I've outside is very expensive. I just have to say that. You know, I didn't know that outside would be as expensive as it was. I ended up spending a grip, but at the same time, the fellowship that I did when I was in Mexico, a lot of people just, you know, gravitated towards me as I did them. And we just were like, hey, hi, I'm this person. And I'm like, it's so crazy because when I'm in Atlanta, I ain't trying to be nobody friend like that for real. But when I was out there, it was just like, hey, you have friends? I don't. You don't? Okay, like, let's go have a drink. And then we just start talking about life, and then we're best friends. Like, it just felt crazy, but it felt so good at the same time. It's been a minute since the pandemic that I was able to even have that type of fellowship with people. So it was so good. And then when I got back, you know, my behind didn't even sit down for 1 second. I went to the Anthony Hamilton concert, but that right there was a night full of Black joy. Black people two-stepping was such a beautiful thing. Man, it was in the name of love. It was just beautiful. People had, you know, brought their little, meals with them, but it wasn't just any kind of meal. They had like crab legs. It was like in the park. They had like crab legs. They had rice plates. They had all kinds of things. They brought their own drinks. People were smoking, but everybody was just vibing. Imagine thousands of people just together, two-stepping. It was, and I was like, it was so beautiful. It was in a park too. So everybody was just outside, and we were just loving on each other, but not like, you know, if you don't know the person, we don't touch her and stuff like that. But everybody was like, oh, I see you. I see you. It was just like a big family reunion. And then yesterday, you know, not that I was celebrating July 4th, but I was celebrating just being off on that day. So I went to a barbecue and was able to also fellowship there. So it was like a full week of me doing something that I haven't done in over a year. So it felt really, really good, y'all. It really did feel good just to be outside. But like I said, my bank account was like, girl, it's time for you to go home. It's time for you to go home.
Fun.
Yeah. At least you didn't come to Atlanta and get stuck in Atlanta and have to do a GoFundMe to get you out of here. So we missed you last week.
My mama taught me I don't go out like that. Nah, I don't do stuff like that. You can't, if you ain't got the money to go nowhere, you're not supposed to go. It's not for you. You need to stay at home. Okay.
Right.
I want to go around the room. So Rebecca, you spent the 4th of July at an Anthony Hamilton concert, and what else did you do? How did you celebrate or not celebrate the 4th of July?
So usually on my balcony, they do this in the parking lot across the way. They do this big show, and I would just sit on my balcony and watch it. But I was like, I'm not doing that this year. So I went over and spent it with some friends, and they did fireworks. And I will say, y'all, fireworks are very dangerous because the way hood fireworks.
That's the part.
Right.
Okay. The way the blowback happened, and it was crazy because when the girls got back from running from the fireworks, grown women had it looked like bullet holes in their outfits. Okay. I was like, yes. And I'm like, but everybody was okay. One girl was like, do I got something on my neck? Whole neck was burnt, but everybody was okay. But I was like, wow, that's my sign. Thank you, God. I'm headed home. But fireworks, no, guys, it's very dangerous. if y'all not like, if you don't know how to do fireworks, please don't.
Just
like,
don't do them.
It's crazy
Just
how
don't
much I think people lose a limb every year over this stuff. Yeah. But yes, that's what I did.
Right, so yeah, Anthony Hamilton fireworks, and I'm sure you did some cooking out because that's what everybody. You got some barbecue. Yes. Georgia, how did you celebrate or not celebrate the 4th of July?
Well, top of the day, you know, I had to post the video of the descendants of Frederick Douglass, and talk about that. But my husband's family, they always do this big thing. A lot of them are in Illinois and Chicago, and so they drive to Minnesota for the 4th. It's the first holiday really here where the weather is nice because, you know, we live in the tundra for 9 months out of the year. So a lot of his family comes here and barbecues, hangs out, goes out, and then the fireworks. And so similar to what Rebecca was saying, I think there was 4 field fires last night.
Oh, wow.
And we were pretty certain. We were pretty certain that it was going to get shut down. But I don't know. They didn't shut it down. People just kept lighting the fireworks off. And my 2 and 3-year-old terrified. So I didn't really get to enjoy it. But that's what his family always does. And it's not necessarily in celebration of the 4th. It's in celebration of good weather. It's in celebration of having the day off of work, wanting to get together. But yeah, so we just kind of hung out, real chill, good food, good vibes, and relaxing. Nice to have like the slower pace.
Right.
And you got to have that. DJ Exclusive. What was your 4th like, or not 4th? You know.
Well, Saturday the family grilled out because we went chill with the family on Saturday, and that was it. Sunday I didn't do anything at all but stay in my damn house. Actually, I take that back. I went to, don't y'all blame me, to Publix, and I got me a tart, some cupcakes, some fruit, and
I still shop at Publix.
Man, not really, but I wanted some Publix cake. Goddamn it, I've been craving that cake for I don't know how long. I said it ain't my birthday, but goddamn it, I'm gonna go get some cake.
Oh, that cake.
Do something for myself.
The carrot cake is good too.
The carrot cake is busted.
Didn't even get a damn cake though. That's the bad part about it. I got cherries and peaches, so I'm like, all right, that's my 4th of July. And libations. So I was good to go.
Libations! You gotta have the libations. I didn't really do much.
I watched this movie on Netflix that everybody needs to watch. It's called America the Motion Picture. It's an animated movie, but it's funny as hell the way they explain how America became a country, the United States of America. And when I tell you they dog America ass out, I love every minute of it. So check that out.
Okay, I'll definitely check it out.
What you say? On Netflix, you said?
It's on Netflix, yeah.
At Netflix. All right. We go check it out. All right, so I didn't do much. I went to Alabama and spent some time with my family, and we spent the day driving back yesterday. So Dr. Mack, as we talk about how we celebrate what we didn't celebrate, you gave us the historical lesson on why, from your perspective, we as Black people should celebrate. I want to have the conversation because there's my nieces were riding with my sister yesterday, and this is what they said. They were like, we don't celebrate the 4th of July. Why are you celebrating they were checking their mother, my sister, who is, and they were like, we're not celebrating it. It's a badge of nobility to say that you don't celebrate the 4th of July as a Black person. Help us understand why that is before we say why.
All right.
All right.
Before we say
Dr.
why,
Mack, I think you know what Ben was saying. There we go.
Right. Before we say why, Dr. Carl Mack, definitely let us know. So Ben was just saying that honestly, Ben was just saying you were giving reasons why we.
What was the last thing y'all heard? I was just running my mouth. I thought I was here the whole time.
I heard that part. Dr. Carmack, was that it? Were you saying reasons why we should celebrate?
Yeah. I want to know why. Because he gave us no, not why we should. I want to see from his perspective if Dr. Mack can restate and understand why we rejected. My internet went out there for a second. If anybody's wondering what the hell just happened, my entire internet went out. But Dr. Mack, could you can you understand why Black people would reject the 4th of July?
Oh, absolutely. And trust and believe that narrative. Well, first of all, let me tell you how I celebrate the 4th of July. I certainly had that patriotic spirit, and I gave remembrance to the more than 5,000 to 8,000 brothers who fought in the American Revolution to give birth to this nation. So I gave thought to that. But trust and believe, there were 2 houses that I went to, and the libations and the food was flowing. So all the things that we do, the music popping, all of that, I was into all of that. But now, from that patriotic standpoint, to know, again, if we're going to claim our contributions to the development of America, I don't limit that claim. I take it all, and it's how you view things. So when I think about the 5,000 to 8,000 brothers and that fought to give birth to America, now go back to what Frederick Douglass says. He talked about the evils of slavery. And again, this speech was given in 1852, so you have to keep things in context. He talks about the evils of slavery. He talks about the fact that we didn't have citizenship. He talks about the lack of liberty because of the ownership that we were under. He talks about the lack of political participation. But Frederick wasn't like most of us. He didn't simply complain about it and didn't do anything about it. Frederick Douglass, look at what happened. He pushed Lincoln to get this Emancipation Proclamation. He pushed Lincoln to allow blacks to fight in the Civil War that ended chattel slavery, because that war was over slavery. He pushed, and for us to fight there, remember the movie Glory? Mm-hmm. It was about the 54th and 55th Massachusetts Negro Regiment. Frederick Douglass was out there helping to recruit blacks to fight in that war. He pushed for, as he talks about the evils of slavery, well, what happened on December 6th, 1865? The 13th Amendment gets ratified. Chattel slavery in this country, gone. Check. 1868, the 14th Amendment is ratified, which gives us citizenship, what he talked about in that speech. Check. In 1870, the 15th Amendment is ratified, which gives black men the right to vote, puts us in political power. Check. And then we knew about all the blacks that served during the first Reconstruction. Check. He now begins to advocate for women's right to vote. And in 1920, even though Douglass is now dead, we passed the 19th Amendment, which gives black women the right to vote. So the things that he was so critical about in America, he went out there and put in work to get these things handled. So when we talk about Frederick Douglass today, and I want you to understand something when it comes to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, Frederick Douglass, in that very same speech, he called these documents glorious. He loved the framework of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence. Now I want you to go back to Barbara Jordan, right? We all love Barbara Jordan. We claim her. Well, look at what Barbara Jordan said. Barbara Jordan said in 1974, in the hearings behind the impeachment of Nixon, she made a most profound statement. She said, "My faith in the Constitution is whole. It is complete. It is total." Go back and look at what Dr. King said in that I Have a Dream speech. Mm-hmm. He said, when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Go back and take the lessons of Thurgood Marshall. All of these black folks we claim. Why was Thurgood Marshall so effective? Because he took the document that America had so much faith and confidence in, the Constitution, rolled it up and whooped America's ass with that document and got us free. That's what he did.
So we celebrate in that sense, that type of freedom.
And you're right there with me, Rebecca. So here's my viewpoint on it as to why I have this patriotic viewpoint of the 4th of July. See, if we listen to his story, all he tells you is what white folks did to birth this nation. This nation was born out of the American Revolution. And the fact that 5,000 to 8,000 black folks were promised their freedom. And when we fought with the freedom. We were fighting 2 issues. We were fighting not only against the tyranny of Britain, but we were fighting against the tyranny of America. So many of our enslaved ancestors fought with the promise of getting their freedom. And in some cases, we were granted that freedom. Some of our ancestors fought with the promise of getting freedom, and America reneged on that. James Robinson would be a perfect example. Some of us, many of us, paid the ultimate sacrifice that gave birth to this nation. So on the 4th of July, when I think about independence of this nation, and to know that we were the hidden figures in that battle, my patriotic view ain't based on white folks and what the hell they did. I'm thinking of Crispus Attucks, Salem Poor, Peter Salem, Lemoyne Haynes, Armstead Lafayette. I'm thinking about all of those brothers who gave birth to this nation. That is the perspective that I do. I don't think about what white folks have taught me. Their policy of omission doesn't mean anything to me. Do I understand the badge that Black folks, have, as you so eloquently said, Ben? I do absolutely understand it. But I also understand the level of ignorance that we have. And ignorance, again, family, don't get in your feelings about it. Ignorance means we just don't know, which is why I love what we're talking about today. You allowing us to have a platform to talk about this history. And see, some people look at history in two ways, one or two ways. Either it's a dead history, meaning that you're going to learn it and you just know it, or it's a living history where you take it and apply it to your life today. I'm taking the ultimate sacrifice. I'm claiming it. I personally am claiming it. And I have no shame in claiming it. And I don't know of a Black person who will come to me and say, no, Carl, the hell with the blood shed by our ancestors in birthing this nation.
So if we claim it,
out their damn mouth for that. Come on with that.
So you're saying if we claim the victories, then we should claim America and claim the holiday is ours.
Look, so how you gonna claim Katherine Johnson and Vaughn and Jackson for what they did in helping John Glenn into space? How are we gonna claim the abolitionist efforts of Frederick Douglass? How are we going to claim all of our ancestors, but then we're going to forget about the 5,000 or 8,000 Black folks who fought to give birth to this nation? How are you going to forget about them and not claim them? I'm claiming them. Now, I know why we don't claim them. We don't claim them because we don't know. And that's why I'm honored that we're talking about that today. So, yes.
I can dig it. I
claim them all. I claim every victory that every Black folk person, known or unknown, has done to the development contributed to the development of this country.
And that sounds like, I'm rooting for everybody Black. What's funny is, though, Ben, you actually said time and time again, especially when white folks want to attack and, say, go back where you came from, things like that. And then you will say, like, I can trace my, ancestry way before you can yours here in America. I guess though on days like July 4th, celebrating patriotism, I think that's a good thing too, to point out, hey, me being American goes way back before a lot of you guys, a lot of you Anglo-Saxons, you know what I mean? Like, so I get to celebrate my Blackness here in America and my culture as an American here. So that could be a reason to celebrate on July 4th. It's like, how you say, not my July 4th. We remixed it, or we made it what it's supposed to be. And that's the fact that America was built on the backs of Black folks, built with the hands of Black folks. So if we're celebrating America, then it's Black Americans have the right to definitely celebrate.
But Rebecca, I want you to understand this. Go back to the title of Douglass's speech. He says, what to the slave does the 4th of July mean? Not what to the Black person in perpetuity does it mean. And keep in mind, Douglass viewed the words of the preamble, the words of the Declaration of Independence. He viewed it as a glorious document. He knew that America wasn't what it should have been. And just because he loved those documents, those principles, doesn't mean that he wouldn't agitate. So in the fact that I look at the 4th of July from a patriotic symbol, trust and believe at every wrongdoing that America does, my foot is squarely up her ass. Unapologetic. The same with Douglas. Douglas was that way. And so let me say this. So another thing that we do, we say, well, Black folks still ain't equal in this country. So I really want to hear from each of you. I want you to name me one aspect of American life in which white people are all equal to each other. Just give me one aspect of American life,
Man,
in which
ready
there
for a
is
pop quiz
equality. Be ready when you come to class, Ben. Give me one aspect of American life where there is equality just amongst white folks.
Their hatred, their bigotry towards Black people. I mean, they're not equal, but they have the equal opportunity in that bigotry.
Well, no. What? So you telling me, that equal opportunity, that ain't the same? Can all white folks go to Harvard?
Well, I mean, I'm not talking about their access to America. I'm saying their access to have bigotry towards people like the Western. What's our guy? James Baldwin talked about the Western Union lady. She wasn't rich. He had way more money than her, but she still looked down on him because she was white and she was in a country that was built on whiteness.
I'm not talking. I'm asking a simple question.
This is school. I would say privilege, teacher. I would definitely just say privilege. Any white folk, no matter what, they're born into privilege. It may be levels to the privilege, but it's privilege, period. Like they have something over us, period. No matter what kind of white you are. You could be trailer park trash or whatever. That's a good question, though. Or you could be in a mansion. Being born white in America has its privilege, and that's to me an equal thing for white folks is their privilege.
White privilege. I would agree with Rebecca.
Yeah.
James, Georgia, y'all, because we got to unite because we got to unite to go to Dr. Hart, Dr. Mack, because Dr. Mack.
I agree with my students. We're
gonna stay in solidarity. White privilege, Dr. Mack. White privilege.
Final answer.
And see, I when I'm talking about the equality amongst, personally, I can't think of it in its quintessential form. I can't think of anything in this country in which equality exists amongst any group. Bill Gates and some man who they're not equal in a whole number of ways. In this whole concept of white privilege, you're trying to tell me that you can get inside the mindset of every white person in this country to define whether or not they have it. And when you talk about white privilege, I'm not talking about their feelings for or against us. I'm simply talking about in life, even amongst Black folks. Tell me one aspect. Just forget every other group of people in the world. Just let's talk about American Blacks. Tell me amongst Black folks one aspect of our life in this country that is equal. No white folks, nobody else is included in this. We're only talking about Black folks. And so the point that I'm trying to make to you all is that we will forever be chasing equality. Frederick Douglass knew it. Barbara Jordan knows it. Thurgood Marshall knew it. All of our ancestors knew it. And so when we're talking about thinking critical and we're saying, well, we're still not equal, think about what Frederick did. Frederick went after all those things he complained about. And so today, the baton that they've given us, and now on the sacrifices of what established this country, because of our lack of scholarship, of our experience, we're now just going to give away the birth of this nation. I'll be damned. I'm not giving it up. So I'm not saying that I'm walking out there in a red, white, and blue uniform, but trust and believe that when I think about the 4th of July, I'm trying to just put myself in the mindset of our ancestors and say, why in the world would they, as enslaved people, fight for this ideology? Because that is what America was, an experiment in democracy and ideology. But the words were beautiful to the preamble. The words were beautiful to the Declaration of Independence. And that is what Barbara Jordan is talking about. She's not talking about America is perfect and I love it in its entirety.
Right.
Douglass was never saying that.
Yeah.
But what they
even
did,
somebody
was they scratched the conscience.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is that even somebody today who decides to celebrate the 4th. So let's say some people are going to celebrate the 4th, some people are not. And the historical perspective that you give is one actually that I agree with. I mean, quiet as it's kept, I think we should claim America. We absolutely should claim America because we've done too much as Black people. We've built this country and we've been here longer than I think the average white American's been here 3 generations. I think the average Black person, we have to find out, but I know we've been here longer than 3 generations. I know my family's been here 5, 6, 7 generations. So I agree. I think we should claim America. But and I think we all agree across the board. It's time for America to now do the same for Black folks. I'm thinking, Rebecca, you weren't here on Friday. You were out in Cancun somewhere. Not Cancun. I don't know where you were. But we were talking about Sha'Carri. And we're talking about how, and then earlier in the week, we talked about Gwen. What's Sister Gwen's last name? Was it Barry? The other Olympian. And then now they've banned, and here's why so many people have an issue with celebrating the 4th, because now they've banned hair covers for the women who are swimmers.
The swim caps. Yeah. They banned the swim caps because they
for
said
naturals.
They said that the afros it makes you if you're an elite, you wouldn't need that. And here's my thing about that. It's ridiculous because I feel like it's another challenge. I mean, even having big hair, big, beautiful hair that, can defy gravity. And just to make sure you have it safe and covered, even having that on top of it, it may be weighing us down. But Black women, Black men are still doing the best to do their swim, right? But it's like they find every little thing to say that this is affecting the swim, making them either swim faster or do whatever. They find every little thing to attack. And what I saw over the weekend or during that time was very upsetting, because what they do in these Olympics is, as they see Black people rising and dominating the sports and dominating them fairly, what they're going to do is find any way. It's almost like when we had that conversation here on the show about the 2 students who were awarded honors, and they were Black students, and the honors were taken away because the parents, white parents, felt that there was some kind of issue, but they couldn't really. There was really no issue. It was a GPA and CPA or whatever they called it. And two white parents wanted, they found one simple issue that we never even heard about: to have those honors taken away from the Black kids and given to the white kids. To this day, we still can't really understand what the issue was, other than them being Black and the white parents not accepting it. So I see that in the same thing in the sports world. Like, Black people are dominating. Black people are coming out. Black people are making it happen. And the usual white folks that we usually watch are upset. They're like, this ain't it. This is more than just Simone Biles here. This is a whole bunch of Black women who are actually making it to the Olympics. It's a problem. And so now we have to find little ways to make sure we say that Sha'Carri is her smoking weed is a problem because it's making her faster, right? And then to go as far as that Australian journalist to put out there so much incorrect information, but a lot of people, and especially because of the color of her skin, the woman who wrote, the white lady, a lot of white people who aren't going to read the truth are going to take on to what she said and believe things like FloJo was a druggie, right? A drug abuser.
You're speaking of that.
Nails are equal to being on drugs. First of all, these are acrylic. These are acrylic, okay? These are acrylic. And then the hair, for her to say the hair on Sha'Carri was, for her to have that length of hair shows that she was abusing drugs. Ma'am, that is a lace front wig. So can you tell us that you're racist without telling us that you're racist? It's right there. But you didn't have any information. So they're always going to try to attack Black people no matter what, with no background, no information, but they're going to try to make everything stick. And what the world does is, because of white privilege and how the Olympics has always been has always been pretty much white, and when we see Black people here and there, the gems of Black folks, it's usually 1 or 2 or 3. And for this season, Black folks are dominating it in every area. And it's shaking up the Americans here. They don't want the sport, the Olympic sport, the American Olympians to be Black. They don't want that. So they're going to find every single thing they can find to have people just disqualified. And
Rebecca,
that is my issue.
You're speaking of I just want to make sure everyone knows who you're speaking of. The Australian journalist, or rather, she's a contributor to The Australian, and she's Claire Lehman. She's founder of Quillette, and she tweeted in regards to Sha'Carri Richardson. She said, "Not sure." This is the white journalist Claire Lehman from Quillette and The Australian. She said, "I'm not sure whether the nails are real or fake. But in case you didn't know, very strong nails and hair can be a side effect of steroid use."
What the?
And she said, and hair.
And hair.
Okay? And not that Black women don't have long hair, but the protective style, ma'am, because if you would have done your research, the protective style that she has on her hair is a lace front wig. And she kept that baby tight and right as she ran past all them other folks that she was running past. And y'all mad about that kind of stuff. So you'll search and you'll reach with short arms for false information, then disrespect FloJo and the memory that we have of her. Okay, that is history to us. That is our Black history. That is history to us. And to disrespect that woman's history is a problem. And this is why all the people made sure they attacked her. But then at the same time, and I'm talking about the Australian journalist, but in the same breath, went beside and stood right beside Sha'Carri. Stood right beside her. Some people were saying, hey, she made a mistake, but it is what it is. And, we're still going to stick right beside her because at the end of the day, there are drug abusers who get just a little pat on the hand and are able to do what they need to do moving forward and still considered Olympians and not looked at as, they literally tried to paint this young woman as a drug abuser, I don't understand, as an addict. Yeah. As an addict, somebody who just lost her mother. Somebody who's going through a lot. Somebody who was told she ain't even gonna make it. Somebody who had to build her confidence for herself as she's young. She's a baby.
She's barely 21.
So, and then all of this hitting her. And this is why I bring you to another one. Naomi Osaka was like, she got to pull back. It's too much. These people feel like they own me. And I'm willing to remove myself from a lot of this stuff that these Americans swear that I have to do because they tell me to do it. Okay? They're driving me nuts, but they do not own me. I think football players should definitely walk in that light too. You should not let these Americans own you. You are not their boys. Okay? You are not. You may make mistakes, you may do all of that. But the white players who make mistakes, what happens with them? They go to rehab. They're treated differently. They're not called drug addicts. Okay? They're saying, oh my gosh, they've been through some things in their lives. They, this is what happened to him when he was younger. This is what happened here.
They humanize him.
Yeah, they humanize him. But little Black girls, young Black women who are on their paths to become Olympians, who hit a blunt, going through stress in life, are pictured as hood and ghetto and drug abusers and coming from these places where they don't deserve to even be an Olympian. That's how they're viewed. And that's a problem for me. Okay? So we're going to stick right beside Sha'Carri. I understand that she even owned up to what she says was a mistake. And it's crazy that in 2021, how that can be considered a mistake when people are literally white folks are making money out their businesses from this same thing. Okay.
They about to make billions.
And then I don't smoke, but I know people who do. And not to say that it slows you down, but for her, if she would have ran after hitting the blunt and ran that fast, I don't know what she on. Okay, that is some kind of magical drug because that ain't how it works. So, but anywho, all of that to say, all of this thing blew up, and they really painted her as such a terrible person. And to see her being interviewed and to just physically see her just shaken and hurt. And just like broken, that killed me. that killed me. And, but she said, I'm human. And then she's like, the other night she tweeted out basically saying, everybody want to act like they're perfect. Everybody wants to act like they're perfect. But, I'm not going to act like that, because I know. And we're all human. We're all people. But one thing about it, I'm not going to take away from her. That sis is talented.
Oh, yeah.
She is
Listen,
talented as hell. And I am not going to allow the media to remove that from her. I'm not. That girl is talented. She is gifted. And I believe that she deserves to run the Olympics.
Okay, so Rebecca, let me say this to you. There is no doubt that anybody that is listening to you, that's watching this, they feel the absolute passion that you have to honor this sister and to protect the history of FloJo, because you know that is so real to you. I'm saying to you that those 5,000 to 8,000 Blacks that fought and gave birth to this nation, that's how real they are to me. And if we know that history, and just like you don't want to give them up, we don't want to give them up. I ain't giving up them 5,000 to 8,000 who made that contribution to birth this nation. To all of what we're talking about, again, remember, America ain't what it should be, but America, based on the efforts of our ancestors, ain't what it used to be. And depending on what we do is going to determine what America is going to be.
Let me ask. Rebecca, you said something else in there that I want to ask Georgia about, because that's where we started this morning. You said in reference to the football players, like, don't let them own you, or paraphrasing you, but you're essentially saying that this system will drain you and drain your life, your talent, everything from you, use you up as a Black person. And then, Georgia, we were talking about this morning, we're looking at exactly how far America will go and drain us. And we're looking at how it will take the life out of us as Black people, ignore our Blackness, cash in on our Blackness, won't pay us none of that money. Look at all now we're just getting into that stage in the NCAA, but America's mastered the art of getting the best of our Blackness and telling us to leave the rest of our Blackness at bay.
Yeah. And, I think about even what Dr. Mack said, and having pride. How do we move to a place? How do we evolve to a place where we have pride as Black people in being American? How can we look at the American flag and see it as a symbol of patriotism the same way that our white neighbors do, right? But I think in order for us to get to a place where we're proud of the 4th of July, we're proud to be American, we're proud of the flag, I think that we're going to have to heal from the pain that this nation has inflicted on us and is continuing to inflict on us. And yes, we will continue to pursue equality, and it may be something that generation after generation after generation has to continue to pursue. But at the same time, there has to be some reconciliation, and that still has not happened here. There also has to be an end to the gaslighting. And so while there may continue to be inconsistencies and opportunities and these different things, we have to level the playing field, and America still has not done that. We still allow this culture that exists that criminalizes and dehumanizes us, as Rebecca said, with Sha'Carri, right? Just a mistake. But then when you compare that, and we have these examples that continue to show themselves of how Black people are treated in certain situations in comparison to how white people are treated in the exact situation. Modern day. Here, we're still looking at the death of Winston Smith, who was killed by a deputy on a task force in Minneapolis. They said he was a murder suspect. He wasn't. But even if he was, we saw Dylan Roof be apprehended without being killed. So how is it that we continuously look at these situations and we have these side-by-side comparisons of how things in America can work for white people? It's because of the privilege that they have. And it is a hypocrisy, as stated by Frederick Douglass so many years ago, right? And so in order for us to get to this place where we're proud and we can really claim our history and our contribution to birthing this nation, we have to heal from this pain, and we have to, our culture has to evolve where these inconsistencies aren't happening anymore.
James, go ahead, Rebecca.
Sorry, that's super interesting because I wish that it would be that easy, right? Because we're generations away from, our ancestors being enslaved. And here we are. And I'm pretty sure at some point they've been talking about, healing, but it's almost like this country needs to be broken down and stripped down all the way. And there's like a new beginning. I don't think that will ever happen, but I think that would be the only way to like just literally have this country stripped down and reparations given and just start anew. Because I think it's so embedded into this country's history and to the way this country moves. Healing for us as Black people, as people who are indigenous in this country, I don't think will ever even scratch the surface to even bring us into a space where we can really have that pride and everybody else be okay with us having that pride. I mean, even on Juneteenth, people are just upset. They're thinking that we're disrespecting the nation by celebrating that, or for whoever, like what we learned about from Dr. Mack in Tallahassee, where they're celebrating it on a different day, but nobody really knows about it. They're making sure they keep all of that history. Crispus Attucks, who was removed from a photo, completely whitewashed. They're going to try their best. And this thing is so embedded in this country that I feel like even us trying to heal, it's like, damn, like, will we ever get to that point of true healing? Sometimes it's one of those things. Here you go. The thing that we hate, Ben. It's like, what don't kill us make us stronger, or whatever that thing, like we're tired of living that way. It's almost like we just have to live that way and come to a point where it's like, we ignore it. I wish it was so easy for us to just get up as Black people in this country and just move to our own area. But we see what happens when that happens too, right? They bomb full damn cities, man, of flourishing Black people. And they'll find us. They'll always find us to make us feel like we aren't supposed to be.
They won't leave us alone.
They won't leave us alone. It's like they just won't. And like I said, I wish that we can come to that place of healing. For us, healing is us doing the work, right? Us getting on top of it and sharing the stories. That's what we can do right now. Us like creating a place where we can educate, because our education system isn't doing that. They're afraid of us talking about the truth of race, right? They're afraid of us talking about what the hell just happened on January 6th from their cousins, their aunties and uncles. So it's a lot. It's stressful, to be honest, but
I want us to get to the after party, and my internet is active. I got this FAMU internet today, so y'all please forgive me. I've been cutting out. BCC. I've been cutting out all day. But I want us to get to the after party. We just wanted to broadcast today with all of us on the 4th of July, the 4th of July episode. We're going to take it to the after party though. James, I want you to get the last word and play us some music. Take us to the after party. When we get to the after party, we're not talking about any of this stuff. We're going to talk with each other. We're going to hang out. If you want access to it, patreon.com/LikeItOrNot. If you're a Benjamin Dixon Show patron, you already have access to it. Be sure to say hello to someone in the chat room. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Whether you're celebrating the 4th of July or not, it's important to have the historical context, and it's important to understand where we actually contributed in this country in terms of history. And y'all, we done did it all. That's all I got. Georgia, Rebecca, James, Dr. Mack, thank y'all so much. DJ Exclusive, it's in your hand before my internet mess up again.
Time goes by and yet I wonder.
All right, y'all, make sure that y'all stay tuned. The after party is going down, man. If you have not joined yet, patreon.com/LikeItOrNot, patreon.com/LikeItOrNot. We will see y'all over there.
I don't know if I it in my head. Set your mind free. Set your mind free. No one knows what I've been through, but this is the end of me and you. Set your mind free. Made a promise to myself, this time I will keep it. When there's a will, yeah, there's a way. With every smile, with every tear, I know I will make it. I'm gonna see you brighter day. Oh, oh, oh. A brighter day, a brighter day. Oh, a brighter day. Time goes by and yet I wonder, why do we put each other through hell? Why can't we just get over ourselves? I know we should. You cast your spell and now we're under.
Shout out Jam Tomb, Jam Tomb. Happy birthday, Jam Tomb.
Again. I don't know if I can take it anymore.
Andy, good morning, B. Andy, good morning, y'all.
Stay here and hold my heart when you walk out the door. Yeah. Made a promise to myself and I repeat it in my head. Set your mind